You know what? I'm actually excited for 9.1 in a way. So, look, right, very often I'm here, I'm in the sofa, I'm presenting, but today let's just have a chat because I'm personally quite excited. And that's even though I'm also the same guy who wrote and published the State of Shadowlands video just under a week ago, and it was pretty damn harsh. Now, I'm not going to be saying to you that this is all going to be perfect and fine and rosy, but a bunch is actually moving in the right direction, and my shifting attitudes towards the game might actually help you. Get some loot with Bespoke Post, today's sponsor. Hit up the link down below. They are a sub box where you will get a wild deal. 45 bucks for what is at least 70 bucks in value, often more, much more. And what's great is actually how they do it, because you get to preview everything you get beforehand. You can pause, cancel, swap boxes beforehand. So no RNG loot here. So here's the point, right? A great deal on stuff that you actually want. And here's the stuff that I've got to show you today. And it's pretty damn hype. We got 2 boxes. So, awesome. 8-inch and almost 4-inch chef's knives. Oh, and now that this spot is recorded, you can be damn sure that these are going back to my kitchen, and I'm going to get a lot of use out of them. And I mean, the value is wild. These are like 75 and 50 bucks respectively. I mean, damn. And then for the outdoors, hello, we've got this guy, where we are going to get, in its lovely looking sheath, awesome outdoor knife. I'm sure I'll do many, many unboxings with this guy. Also, wire, like chainsaw, pretty awesome. Survival guide that itself is very rugged and also a very, very enlightening read. We have got this rugged case itself, which is pretty damn awesome, and a paracord bracelet, which is really handy gear to have. So for me with them, it is a case of picking an upgrade or a hobby and nabbing the box. It's just a bunch of fun for 45 bucks, you know, mixology, coffee, outdoors, you know, gear like the bag that I got last time. Awesome stuff. Hit up that link down below. A big thanks to Bespoke Post for being a returning sponsor of the channel. And with that said, let's go. Do Blizzard get it? I mean, that's been the thing, hasn't it, for so long? So many of us, we've seen parts of the game, and we just kind of thought to ourselves, oh, they don't get it. They don't get me, how I'm playing the game. They don't get how these systems are frustrating and limiting sometimes. That's a feeling a lot of people have had. I mean, that's why you see so many comments of people being like, oh, do they even play the game? Well, there's a few things that I want to go through today that actually do give me a bit of hope that Blizzard actually do get quite a bit. So, I interviewed Morgan Day, and one of the things we covered there was Tourgast, and they mentioned it a few other times throughout BlizzConline. Now, it was interesting because Morgan talked about the development process of Torghast and how it came out onto live, and, you know, there were issues. And he basically said that the way that things worked out, it felt so bad losing mid-run that they kind of had to nerf it down. And then for me, it led to this situation where twisting corridors could be fun and cool, but I don't even feel like I can be bothered to get involved in any of that because by the time I get my soul ash, I'm tired of Torghast. Well, the good news here is that seems to be changing, and actually seems to be changing in a great way. So the death counter is going away. And it seems like Tourgast is going to be a type of content where you're expected to fail, and you're actually rewarded for it. Now that might seem a bit crazy to some of you, but that's extremely normal for the roguelite genre. You're not expected to win your run. So it seems to me that they're refactoring and changing up Tourgast so that it is like that. So that you're not supposed to win Tourgast. So that dying in it is actually normal and something that you feel good about, okay about, because you'll get some cool rewards. Because, you know, for me, it's that thing, I'm playing Dead Cells, right? I get through a run, I die, I get some currency. So when I go to do my next run, I'm happy because I'm a bit more powerful. So I think that stuff being woven into Tourgast would be absolutely awesome. I'm very excited to see what's going on there. But basically, from when I talked to Morgan, it seemed like he really did understand what the current issues with Torghast are, and that's really good. Torghast right now, I think, does not work out. I think it's got great potential, and I think the team is going to be a lot more able to realize that if they can actually just, you know, change it up in the way that Morgan discussed. So that's pretty good. I feel like they actually understand people's issues with Torghast. The Stygia changes in PTR. That's another thing that makes me think the Blizzard actually might just get it. They might understand. So there, you know, Stygia, it's being, well, it doesn't apply to Season 2 gear for the sockets, you know, the Stygia sockets. That's one thing. You know, your conduits via the Stygia upgrades, that's limited to item level 226. And it seems like they're doing a little bit of a revamp of that Venari stuff with a new currency in the next patch. And to me, that says that they understand that, yeah, the way that Stygia played out at launch with a lot of raiders and stuff, feeling like they had to go to the Maw, that didn't work out that well. So to me, that's actually a really good thing, seeing that. It makes me think, oh, the dev team, they actually get it. You know, they get that thing that annoyed me. And that feels actually pretty good. Another thing, PvP gear scaling. So one of the things the PvP community wanted for ages is just for PvP gear to be PvP gear. So they don't feel like they've got to go and do other types of content in order to get their gear, right? And I think that's fair enough. And yeah, they tried to get the trinket set bonus to do that, but they actually said during BlizzCon that they are considering going to the Warlords of Draenor PvP gear scaling system. And basically that would mean that PvP gear, when you actually put it in your character, it would have whatever item level it is, but its item level would increase once you got into PvP content. And that would basically just mean PvP gear is best for PvP. And that would be that. And I think that would be pretty great. It would potentially mean that raiders wouldn't feel like they've got to PvP against their will to get that gear, and vice versa for the PvP players. And that's kind of cool, because it would mean that Blizzard would be comfortable with a situation where PvPers could ignore some of PvE and PvEers could ignore some of PvP. Because hey, if you don't want to do the content, you shouldn't feel like you've got to do it. So I thought that was pretty damn good. And then as a raider, the idea that I could be getting, you know, some new things in my raid gear in the next patch, like Ian has said, that they really understand, like, raiders are not super happy with gearing right now. And, you know, we talked about, like, potentially having, like, unique effects, maybe ones you can make a little bit more powerful, which, you know, the currencies or whatever of how that would work would have to be well and carefully implemented. But the idea that, yeah, on the raiding gear, they seem to have some thoughts. It seems like they want to make that more interesting and more involved. And that's pretty damn good. It makes it, you know, makes me feel like they're really listening to and understanding the feedback that they're getting. And, you know, of course, we've got the Valor points for Mythic Plus, and I know not everybody's perfectly happy with that, but I think it's a move in the right direction. And there was a lot of, you know, people saying, oh, really? I can't upgrade to item level 226 via my my Mythic Plus gameplay? And lo and behold, on the PTR, we saw data mining suggest that they actually changed that such that you maybe could get that gear up to 226. So it feels like they're listening and making rapid changes. I mean, even on the thing of, you know, cross-faction PvE, I mean, Ian talked about that in a very non-committal way, but in one where he did say that the ultimate goal is that you play the game with your friends, and that they've got mercenary mode for PvP, and that Alliance can fight Alliance in Arena. So that makes me think that they've actually seen this problem and are thinking about how they can do a mercenary mode for PvE. Cool. I mean, the Maw revamp, that's another thing then. The Maw is not that fun right now. I go there, you get your 15, your 20 souls, and then I leave because, I mean, I'm not going to get Stygia by doing the Maw to make my Tourgast better. I'd want to do that via Tourgast. And I'm not going to farm that Stygia to get another socket because I have better things to do with my life, and I think that's kind of bribing people to engage in the gameplay content rather than them really wanting to do it. And you look at patch 9.1 and you see there seems to be a massive revamp of what the Maw is actually like as a gameplay experience, even with a new feature called like Covenant Strikes and stuff like that. You know, all of these things I bring up to say that there's a whole bunch of criticisms that I had on Shadowlands that it actually seems like they're addressing, and they're addressing decently promptly. And that really is a good thing, and I think with that context in mind, you can maybe understand how I'm actually a lot more open to being excited for 9.1. Alright, so now that we've established that at least I think the Blizzard get it a bit more with some of what's going on in the game, Why am I excited? Well, thing number one is obvious. I feel they understand my pain points in Shadowlands. I feel listened to as a player and a customer, and like they're actually willing to change up some things. I did not feel that way at a similar point in, say, the Battle for Azeroth expansion, so directionally, I'm so happy that I feel this way. Getting into the content then, Mega Dungeon. Right. The type of player that I am, what I want to do is I want to go into a rock-hard dungeon, beat my face off it, and actually be happy with failing on a boss, because as somebody who really enjoys, heroic progression rating, that thing of getting better and better and better and, with every attempt, that is so satisfying to me. And of course, I'm recording this, the night that we killed Heroic Denathrius, which is so much fun. So that there's a big new mega dungeon coming in, I mean, that is the dungeon gameplay that I personally as a player actually care about. Now, I'm happy that for you Mythic Plus people, that this mega dungeon will eventually turn into Mythic Plus content in a future patch. But for right now, that I can go into this new mega dungeon with the raid team, and that there's even, hard mode content within that mega dungeon, that is just something that, to me, Shadowlands didn't actually have at launch, because the Shadowlands dungeon that I really enjoyed was just doing the mythic dungeons, plain and simple, when I was under-geared. And to me, that felt a little bit closer to, like, the Cataclysm Heroics, which are the dungeons that I always, well, at least when they were a thing, that I really loved. So, and of course, the likes of Pit of Sauron, Halls of Reflection. I mean, man, do you remember doing those back when you were a bunch younger in Wrath? That was so cool. And to me, these mega dungeons can really just channel that. And now that I've found myself in this fantastic guild full of lovely people, just that there's a new mega dungeon coming out, it is so exciting to me. So that's another great thing. Then lore and storytelling. So for me with World of Warcraft, I've always enjoyed the lore and the world building. But those things are different from storytelling, right? Storytelling is like, I think, the actual how that lore is told, how the stories are told, what it's actually like when you're playing it in-game. Whereas lore is just, the state of the Warcraft universe. I've generally enjoyed the lore, and, through BFA and early Shadowlands, I have felt that the storytelling has been a bit fragmented, like they've really just been showing us highlight reels, and like the stories have not had enough room to breathe. And when I think back to the Legion expansion, what I actually loved about how it ended up going was the simplicity. It actually was pretty damn linear. Eventually you went to Argus, you went through a linear storyline, you went through the linear raid, and it was this very, Warcrafty, big scale, epic, awesome storyline that was just told plain and simple. And I think that meant that it was a very accessible and successful story for the team. And I think that happened a lot less with the BFA expansion, and I think Shadowlands did have its own struggles too. But in the 9.1 patch, from what we understand, and actually this is some stuff I got from the interview that I did with Morgan and Steve, is that basically it's a good bit more linear. We actually have a unified Covenant campaign. Now, yes, that is that less content? Is that more content? I guess it depends on how how much effort they put into that one campaign. I think they'll have to put a lot of effort in because it is just one and not the 4 that we got at launch. But I think that will just let them tell a far more clearly paced story, right? I mean, think about a movie and a TV show. You generally go through them and you get the whole thing as you go, instead of the more fragmented nature of some of the stuff that we've got. And when I was talking to the guys, they said that, there'll be story content in the campaign, and that will lead into the raid. And then they actually have Covenant campaign content that is planned that takes place after the raid, which I guess will be dealing with whatever crazy things happen in the raid. And from what I understand there, I mean, if you've seen the video, there's Ner'zhul. It's pretty hype. Maybe some other things too. They've really hyped up this final confrontation with Sylvanas, which, you know what, if we can get some Anduin in there, we can get some Tyrande in there, we could have a really cool big lore moment. In the same way that we got those cool lore moments like the end of patch 7.2 in Legion, right? When Illidan opened that portal and it just changed everything. And the fact that, you would have thought the Torghast raid, like going to the jailer's house, you would have thought that was the final raid of this expansion. But no, we're getting it so soon. And that kind of means like, wow, what are the future, places that Shadowlands, that's going to take us? What will these raids be? It's not this thing where it's just going to be one raid per Covenant zone, which I think is definitely a good thing because that would have been quite predictable. So on the lore and the storytelling, I'm feeling better about how it could play out in a patch versus the launch. Also a new raid. I'm of course excited about that. I love raiding. I love progression raiding. It was always the thing I aspired to do. And I was one of those players, in Wrath of the Lich King, I got to do that in Trial, I got to do that in Icecrown Citadel, I got to do that in Kata with like Alakir, BWD, the other one, and then things kind of fell apart, partially my fault. And from that point, it was until like the tail end of Mop's first tier, and then Throne of Thunder and Siege of Orgrimmar, where I really got into it. And then, I did High Maul, and things kind of fell apart before we reached Blackhand. And from that point, the next time I tried to raid was, it was Emerald Nightmare, and things fell apart. And after that point, I did not get to properly raid, like, for so long, until, I find myself in this great new guild where, our sort of lead video editor is the GM, and that is where we did Nyalotha, and, we just did Nathria. So I'm in this great place, as a person with raiding, and I cannot wait. And that I now know that there's a new loot system coming in for the raids, or at least, changes to the gear, and that could be quite exciting. It feels like it's going to be new and different. And to me, as someone who just wants to go in and raid, that's quite exciting. And of course, Shadowlands fights with me less. It's not asking me to keep up on my artifact power in the way that the previous expansions did. And, the raid anima gains were buffed a whole bunch, such that I know that, my weeklies I'll be able to keep on top of in a way where they won't feel like a chore. So to me as a raider, that all feels really good. And then there's the Mythic Plus loot system. I know it's not perfect. I do think it is better. I'm more likely to engage in that. So that's pretty damn good. And then, of course, the revamp of the Maw. I can't 100% tell you that's going to be good, obviously, but that was a bit of the expansion that I did not really enjoy. And they're changing it up, and they're making it different. So perhaps I will enjoy it. So here, it's a situation where I really don't see things getting worse. I don't see benthic gear appearing and being a humongous issue, assuming that new raid gearing system is okay. I don't see something like corruption gear could come in if they really go that far with the raid gearing system. I hope they don't, but I just don't see things getting a whole bunch worse or bizarre, like needlessly bizarre. And I see a situation where the parts of the game that I just enjoyed with this tier will continue to be good, potentially better. And then the likes of Torghast and the Maw and Mythic Plus loot and a bunch of other things are going to get better. Plus, I get an 8-boss mega dungeon with hard modes to enjoy. Come on. That's why I'm more excited. And potentially, for those reasons, you might be as well. So with that said, what will my gameplay experience be? Because I'm very aware that I sit here, I present some lore to you, and almost none of you actually know what I do in the game. And in fairness, for a long time, it was not that much, because like a new patch come out, I'd get into it a bit, but I didn't really have a raid team, I didn't have a super solid group of people to play with, and I think that's, those times where we find ourselves drifting away from World of Warcraft, they're almost always the times where we're drifting away from like a social group. So what my gameplay experience is going to be is this. It's going to be 2 nights a week of raiding with a team that I love playing with. It's going to be getting into that mega dungeon on the regular and doing those hard modes and getting all I can out of it. It's hopefully going to be Tourgast V2, which is what I kind of see this as being, based on how Morgan talked. It's going to be some casual PvP, and hopefully it'll be a bit of world content in a world where the Maw is just, a bit better, a bit more fun. And what that leads me to, play with friends, right? Seriously, play with friends, get a guild. If I was not in a guild, that new mega dungeon, I'd have to pug it. And I don't like playing with pugs. I'm sorry, I don't. I like playing in a situation where everyone's got skin in the game, because we're all coming together with the goal to play with each other in the long term, and that means there's an incentive to have banter, to have fun, to make real, genuine connections. So please, if you use that pre-made group finder, do everything, I implore you, do everything in your power to not use the group finder anymore, to find a guild. I mean, I remember during like BFA when it was having its rough spots. I think it was like, T&E where like, they were still having a real blast in the game, and, a bunch of people were kind of like, shills. And, I actually get a lot more of it, because when you are in a guild, even in the times where the game is not in its best state, you can just still actually have a lot of fun, because WoW can still act as this really strong social venue. So, learn the lesson of that. Find a great guild. And, some of the people we're playing with right now, they are new members who just happened to find us in this expansion. There was no magic, no special sauce. It's not like I tried to use having a platform to get guildies or something like that. You can do it too. And you will be so much happier if you do it. And if it doesn't work first time, try it again, give it a shot. And it leads me into another thing. I'm happy to wait because of this. I have a more diverse gaming library right now, and that means that I am less beholden to WoW's bad bits and its content droughts. Look, I'm happy to wait and play Valheim with my guild until the new patch comes out. Now, if I was in a situation where I was a World of Warcraft mono gamer, and that's the thing, World of Warcraft has got such a identity with people. It's like being a WoW player is almost a part of people's identity. I think because, some of us, we got shit for it when we were younger maybe. But that can actually mean that you're placing this immense burden on World of Warcraft. Now, I'm not going to use that as an excuse for design decisions that I obviously disagree with. But in a world where you're not a mono gamer and you feel like you can go and play some other games and still have fun, that puts less pressure on World of Warcraft to handle all of that gaming time for you. And that actually means that it basically empowers you to pick and choose the bits of World of Warcraft that you actually want to play. And what I like now is that, okay, maybe not for the Mythic Raiders, but for a lot of people, you can choose not to engage in bits of World of Warcraft and you won't be screwed over for it, right? Even when I was really far behind in Renown because I had I had an iffy Christmas and a pretty horrible January, and that just meant I was really falling behind in things. I was not doing my weeklies or anything like that, but even through that, I was still able to raid. The game didn't punish me that much for it, and I was still able to do the performance that I needed to do to get things done and be I would like to think, a valuable member or a contributing member of the team. So yeah, with the way the game has changed, actually it's okay to leave for a bit. And, you can come back when you're going to have a bit more fun. And that's not an anti-WoW thing. That is a pro-you thing. Because ultimately, that's the most important thing. It's not all about us sitting here and trying to justify how we can support one game that one corporate entity makes. It's trying to use gaming as a hobby that, actually is good in our lives. And sometimes, if we're so hyper-focused on one thing, we can kind of, we lose the forest for the trees or whatever, and that's not good. So, there you go. We covered a bit more than just why I'm excited for patch 9.1, but I felt that doing an objective rundown of the features would be so completely pointless, because all of those features are ultimately ran through me as an individual and some of the changes I've made that are really helping me enjoy the game more. And that does mean that if that WoW equation, might work out for me, if it doesn't work out for you, that's okay. You can leave and do something else and maybe come back later. I would say, number one, don't force yourself through anything, because that is just going to breed a resentment and a disdain. And you're going to feel bad about the game, but you're then going to feel bad about yourself for forcing yourself through the game when you don't enjoy it. And that's going to be bad for your self-esteem and your fulfillment in your life, right? So there you go. I think I could probably ramble on for a whole bunch more, but I think we've extracted, if I'm being put into a juicer, maybe most of the value's being extracted, and it's time to close things off. So that is it for me. I would love to know what your thoughts are on topics like this, what you're doing that's maybe helping you to enjoy the game, and what sort of frameworks for how you experience World of Warcraft allow you to maybe see a new patch feature set and evaluate which bits of it you actually like. Let me know. thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.